Okay, so to get going here, David LaFife is our product data management or PDM applications consultant. He helps companies implement solutions to improve their engineering processes and get more out of their IP. David came to us after years of experience in the energy and automotive industries with a passion for data. And when he's not busy setting up replicated servers all over the globe, you can find David climbing, hiking, or skiing in the Rockies. And if you can't see him, you'll definitely hear him because his laugh is infectious. I'm happy to introduce to you David.
All right, thanks, Tim, and hello, everyone. Thank you for being on this webinar. Thank you for taking the time, and welcome again. So obviously, if you're here, and with given this title of this webinar, you're a little bit like me, I guess. You like things in order. I am this kind of person where when it's messy, I can't think straight, or when I can't find something, it drives me nuts. So you might have been thinking about, implementing a system for organizing your data. You might have put that on back burner because we're all busy, right? We have a lot of work, deliverables, and all that stuff. But the reason weeks have been nothing but normal, and you might have more time on your hands now, as maybe you're running a little bit slower on projects. And I would think that today or right now is a great time to implement or to clean up your data, to declutter, like my wife would say. She likes to say that word. I think she thinks it makes me feel better if it's declutter instead of clean. But anyways, so what we've seen at Hawkridge today is a significant increase in online training. So we can see that people are, trying to stay busy, widening their range of skills. So, another thing that can be done to stay busy, to take advantage of that time, is to implement a system that can be done remotely, and then down the road that will keep you, more efficient, more productive. So here's my proposition for today's webinar. We're going to take a look at what you can do with your data and how you can improve from the cleanliness and to productive and being efficient. So I want to focus on 4 areas: improving file security, organize and find your files, increase productivity, and to share your files. So let's get started right away. That's the agenda for today. Again, feel free to ask some questions in the chat. I'll pick those up as we're going. So improving file security. The typical situation for data that is outside of a data management is pretty binary. So literally, it's black and white. Do you have access or you don't? Really, it gets even more complicated when you try to have more group inside the company accessing the same data. It's not very flexible because you can't really give access but just a little bit, or just this piece of data, or maybe just tailoring these the way you would like. So let's just start with that: improving file security, about who gets access, what is allowed, and how your data is safe. So I'll switch here to my PDM admin tool. This is where I do all the back-end work of my PDM system. So the first thing that I want to mention is, in PDM, you can have as many users as you want. Those users can be integrated with Active Directory. So that's quite interesting, because if I look at my new user here, I can create them in PDM, no big deal, and give them credential and password, but I can also have them imported from Active Directory. So the advantage of that is you have the same login. It's easier to manage for an admin because you just bring them in, and you're pretty, you're set. You bring those users in, and you have your user inside PDM ready to go. The second thing is the groups. It's way easier for an admin to manage everything through groups, and you can have as many groups as you want, right? So groups like, and approvers or change control or manufacturing, and then all these groups will have different rights. And this is where it gets interesting. So, I'll just talk a little bit about, how precise you can be with those permissions. So let's say for my design group, I have a centralized place to put my data. It's called a vault. So this is basically the folder that I have. As I create folders, those would change, but literally, when I look at, the whole vault, I have, different permission that I can give. I can give user access to see all those folders with all of them, or I can go folder by folder. I could say, all right, well, under PDF you'll be able to do all of that, but not under, I don't know, legacy import, for example. So as you can see, you can get very precise. You can see the folder or the file or not, and then from there it keeps going. Can you add file? Can you rename them? Can you add the folders? Can you delete the file? And then it gets to, can you modify the file? Can you move it? And then it goes on and on. So very precise permission at a folder level. This is key to give different people different access on the data. The second piece of it is pertains to your process, basically. So if we take a look at, let's say, a workflow process, if we look at, how you approve your files. I'll get back to the workflow to give you a deeper understanding on what you can do with this. But let's just say my design file go through a concept, initial review, release phase, and then they go through a change process. All those stages will control, I will be able to control the permission on all those stages. So let's say I want, engineering to be able to, again, add files or change the files or move them. I can control that under concept or under the stages. And then when it gets to a release stage, I can include more people to see the file. So you can see that not only I can tailor the permission on the folder and what you see, but I can also tailor the permission about, where the file is in my my stages of design. So let's take a look at it inside of the vault that I was mentioning. So a vault is literally located on a local computer. And then I'll log in as Mr. Viewer right now. So Mr. Viewer will get in the vault, and we'll see three folders: my bill of material, my PDFs, and my projects. I can browse through my folders. This is just a Windows environment, just like you know it. It's folder based, and you have a bunch of tabs here at the bottom. So that's my PDM environment. I'll get into a projects here, look at my mechanical design file, and you can see that Mr. Viewer have access to some release files. And if I look at different other files into different folders, all of these are released. Now I will log off as Mr. Viewer, get back in my vault again, but this time as Mr. Engineer. And I'm lazy, so I just went ENG. So Mr. Engineer, when he gets in the vault or she gets in the vault, has many more folders. So that's where I say, folder permission, you can restrict who see what, right? And then if I get into some projects, the same project where I was, you can see that under my mechanical design file, Mr. Engineer have access to a lot more files, some that are in concept, some that are in a different workflow, and we'll get to that. Same thing if I get into that actuator here, you see a lot more file here. So controlling the access to the folder and the stages of your design is how you can get this system to help you really manage who and what's being done on your files. Lastly, on the file security, the architecture of PDM is basically a server and a client. So what you're seeing here is my client. I'm working on, my workstation, which is great for performances, right? So once I access the file, once I get them from the server, I'm actually working on my local machine. This is a great advantage for opening time, for not taxing your network and your server with all those with all those that you're doing right now if you have like share a folder on a Windows file system. So the second advantage is as I'm modifying my files and uploading them to my server, these are all secured and backed up. So this means that if something happened to this workstation, it's not a big deal. Those files are on my server and I can, spin it back up and get those files back. So a lot of great file security. All right, let's get back to our agenda. I want to move to organize and find your files. So, one of the biggest challenge when it comes to data management is to find a system where you can find your files. That seems simple, right? It's like, okay, well, I just need to find my file, but it's one of the main reasons why company will seek out a software like SolidWorks PDM. Windows file system lacks the ability to accumulate a lot of information. You already have information, let's say, contained in your custom property of your SolidWorks files, for example. So when you store them on a Windows file system, those are not to be displayed anywhere. So that's very interesting to get a data management system to get these to populate automatically your storage system or where you keep your file, your vault, and then to search them. But other data management system might have the ability to store a lot of information, but they might not have the ability to give you a flexible folder system that is Windows based. So this means that you need to rely on that metadata solely to find the things around. So PDM is a hybrid environment. It allows you to browse your folders, copy, paste, drag and drop, all those Windows functions are really appreciated. And it also allows you to accumulate as much information as you want to search them through great search tools and referencing features. So let's go again back to our vault and look at all that that information or that storage. So the first thing I want to point out is the data card. So the data card is where you will accumulate a lot of information. So if I look at this file here, I do have a bunch of information about my part number, my description, my revision, and it can bring my my material automatically. It can bring a lot of information from your custom property, and it's all stored here on those data cards. It's good to know that the data card is custom. So literally you can accumulate any type of information. If you want to know about your vendor, if you want to know about if it's a build part, a purchase part, if you want to know about anything that you want to accumulate as far as information can be put on a data card. A data card is pretty easy to modify. You can come inside, you just have to check out the file. I had it already checked out, and I can change information to a drop-down menu or radio button, just typing that information. It's pretty simple. And then by checking in my file, I'm basically storing this file inside of my my server. And it's secured and backed up. So that's for the data card. Very important little things on here. The other thing that I want to point out is the versioning system. So the versioning system is how the system keeps track of your changes. So let me back up 1 second here, and then let's look at this file here. So you can see that I'm at revision B here on my data card. I store my revision on here, and then I'm going to go look at the history that I have on this file. One thing that I like about PDM is it does, store all the revision and all the versions of my file under one file. This makes for a very, very clean environment. So instead of having, this 2-finger attachment underscore A underscore B, or having a lot of those revisions floating around and creating a mess in my folder. I have one file, and all of its history is underneath. So you can see that I have different revisions done by pretty much the same user, and then some comments associated with it. So we'll get back to the comment section, which is really handy. But you can see that it's a clean environment, and at any point of time, if I want to get a different revision, I can get that revision. So it's not like it's just giving me the information about what happened. It's live. I can retrieve those revision. And if you're wondering why is there revision and version, that's because version is taken care of by the system logging every change you make, and then the revision is something that I increment through my process automatically to track my production or prototype or whatever, those important steps of my design. So very clean environment, accumulating a lot of information, and then what I can do with this is pretty amazing, where all that information can be displayed in in the way I want in a bill of material. That allows me to maybe export that to a spreadsheet. So there's a one-click, very easy button where I can export that information to a spreadsheet. This, you might want to share that, or you might want to enter that in a different system. You get that right out of the box in PDM. You can have different, you have access to your revision on a click of a button here. If you want to, different, you'll see there's some information changes here. And then we have the contains and where use. So if you're not in a data management system, it's really hard to know where things are at. So for the contains, it's kind of the it's a bit of the bill of material, but in a tree structure. It will let you know where things are in certain folders. You can browse to those things, you can check them out, you can do your operation right from this window. I really like the where use as well. The where use, for example, will let you know where things are located. So if it's in one assembly or if it's in multiple assembly, it will let you know where they're located. Very handy for common parts that could be in multiple assembly if you're about to change them. It's always good to know if those changes will apply to one assembly, multiple assembly, etc. So great little functionality here with the contains and where use. Let's talk about my projects here. You could see that I had project. You could see that I have different projects here, and they have a folder structure. One of the standardization of PDM is to be able to, repeat the same thing and make sure that, you use something standardized. So one of the feature is to be able to create those projects or any folder structure automatically. So as far as the name, I can call it project Z, and then give it a number, doesn't matter. And then let's say this is gonna be for the webinar. And this automatically creates a new folder, a new project folder with the same types of folder inside of them, making sure that I'm always recurringly doing the same type of projects with the folder inside of them. Okay. So we've talked a little bit about the structure of my files, how they look inside of my folder, and they can be pretty much anywhere in my vault, and I can play with the reference. So you saw that, my file can be in a different folder, and I can see through the contents and where use. A good thing to know is I can actually make reference from different documents to other documents on the fly. So basically, we've been looking at SOLIDWORKS references. It's great because they come in automatically. You bring your assembly in, they recognize the reference. But PDM is for any type of information. So if I take this document and I copy it, I'll be able to associate it with, any other type of file. For this example, I can associate it with, um, let's say I'll associate it with this one here. Check out my file and associate the two together. That's very useful for something like a material spec, an assembly document, anything that pertains to that part could be associated with it. So the file doesn't move, it stays in its folder, but it's referenced now with that connector. So now if I look at under the contains, I can see that it referenced this one for my specification. I can quickly go and access that file through a browse and then basically look at my my document through BDM. So a lot of great advantages here as far as organizing, as far as accumulating information and using the reference to find them. But maybe you're thinking, well, can I find these files, without browsing or without using it? What if they're not referenced? What if I need to find a new file? Well, PDM has a great search tool. It's not a search tool like Windows. That would be underwhelming. So there's a global search here. I have already, searches that I've done previously, so that's pretty easy. I can also search for different type of metadata, right? So if I want to include my description, I can include it. If I don't want to include the file name and I just want to search for different type of metadata, I can also do that. It's pretty easy to search and then returns not much. So the search also works with the, let's see, let's do this again. Should be able to, did I? Well, it's not stuff. That's not stuff on that. Let's go with the complete search. So not only you can do a global search, but you can do a lot more searching than just keyword or those metadata. We talked about the workflow. So the workflow are very important if you want to know if something is in a concept phase. If you want to know if something is approved, released, you can search for those stages. You can also get very nitty-gritty and search for any piece of metadata that you have. So any piece of information that you may have in PDM can be searched. This is why it gets important to do a data card that have the information that you want to search, because then all that information can be searched. And again, if I just search everything in my vault, I can export that quickly to a CSV or a spreadsheet and share those results. So you can see I can search for many things. All right. So that's for organizing my data and sharing it. Still sore about this guy here, but I'll get over it. Let's see. No. We'll get back to it. All right. Let's move on. Okay, I can see there's no question yet. All right, again, I'll just repeat that. If you want to bring any question that you may have right now, anytime's a good time. Let's move on. Increase productivity. This is one of my favorite. So increasing productivity. Let's be honest. There's a lot of things that you do right now that you do because you've always been doing it that way, or maybe people are used to it and you don't want to change it, or maybe you're too busy and you're not wanting to take that time for it. But how many of you guys use a spreadsheet to keep track of the part number? Or how many of you guys email a colleague to let them know that there's a new revision available? There's also, a lot of people out there that are converting their drawings to a PDF, which is great, but all those little things, as you do them, they take a little bit of time. You convert here, you send that email. A lot of those things can be automated, whether it's the communication, automation of the PDF or some document creation, and then reusing your files quickly, taking a concept, a design, and then reusing it and changing it might be very interesting for many of you guys. So let's take a look at how you can increase your productivity with PDM. All right, so let's start with, let's see, what do we start with? All right, let's get to some projects, and then let's get into, say, a drawing. So one of the first thing I want to show is, we've seen a little bit with the history that a lot of things that we do can be mapped out. So instead of emailing, or instead of logging somebody's office to let them know what you've done to a file, you can actually log it to PDM. So if I check out a file and I decide I'm gonna, change some stuff on it, the one thing I can do is, let's say I'm just gonna change the material here. Go copper, whatever. So I'm gonna change the material and then check this back in. When I check it back in, I have the opportunity here to leave a comment. So this is where I'm basically leaving my notes for my history, so somebody else can know what happened. So I just change the material. I can just put change the material and done. So you'll see that this comment on just changing something in my file will be logged in my history with the time by Mr. Engineer today, the correct time with the comments. So that's a great way to let people know what I've done to my files. Another thing that I can do is to let people know things are happening through my workflow, right? So if I send this file to an approval process, so again, my file is in concept and I'm going to a review process. This is how a user would do it. Just right click on the file, change state. It's that easy to change state or to go through my approval process. In my comments here, I can put a comment for the transition. Can leave it blank as well, but you'll see here I have a little dynamic notification. I can notify some people that something is happening. So somebody like, on my approval process, or on the approval committee, or depending on the size of your company, you might have many people or just one. So I'll go ahead and send that to an initial review. Same thing will happen when I do a change state to approve, let's say, to a release state. This time it might involve more people, it might involve different people. So I'll just go with Mr. Viewer, just because we're kind of used now to Mr. Viewer. Done with design. And then I'll just, oops, I can't write anymore. Drawing, there you go. And then I'll say review ASAP. So you see, again, I can leave a comment. That's pretty easy to do, just like we did with our version comment. But I can also put notification comment, which will only go to the person being notified. We'll do that here, and then a notification will be sent to someone to review that, or in this case, Mr. Viewer will be able to see my new revision. I got a new revision A. I got a new sets of information inside of my data card. And then if I log off as Mr. Engineer and log in as Mr. Viewer, you'll see that I'll get a notification for, maybe it's your manufacturing being notified that, there's a new revision, or, you can be creative with who would get the notification for what reason. And the notification can be done through emails. They can be done to database. They have a little pop-up. I'm not sure if you heard the sound. It can be also a little sound with it. But you can see that I have very useful links here. So you're not looking for the file. You're not emailing a file. As a reviewer can go directly to the folder and I got my comments here, and then browse to those file. Doesn't have to browse to those file, it can be directed right away to that release file here. So very convenient notification system, prevents you from, you know, mailing or walking to somebody's desk or logging this thing that you've done on another platform. Everything is centralized. All right.
Hey,
The other
David.
thing, oh yes, Tim, go ahead.
We've got some questions that came in. Carl asks, is there a, I know, we love the questions. For all of you out there, no, please don't hold them.
Yeah,
I
and I
always
need
think this is more valuable when we answer your questions. But Carl's question is there a best practice for naming files in the vault, like using descriptive names versus the serial numbers? And sometimes, you know, I've seen a myriad of file management techniques where people append like revision names to things in the file name, or
right.
does it matter how we set this up? What's the best practice? Can you just share some info on that?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. What's interesting with a system that got a lot of information or metadata is you don't have to fit all that in a name, right? So the reason why you would put it in a name is because you had nowhere else to put it. But now that we have a lot of metadata or information, you can divide up that information in different, you know, containers, if you will, or, you know, different piece of metadata, which allows you to keep your name something you know, something generic. Actually would be even, yeah, a lot of our company actually do that. They will name their with the part number, or they'll name with just a random number that increments. And then you have the description, you have the revision, you have all those stuff to give more information about that file. So you keep that simple, you have all your history. And I'd say, you know, I'll be covering in a couple of minutes, you know, serial number or part number inside of PDM. You can leverage that inside of PDM to automatically create new part numbers and serial numbers for your files.
Awesome. We have one more question.
Yes.
Gareth asks, I think I'm getting that right, is tagging people in the transition window a PDM Pro feature only? So we should probably take a step back, talk a little bit about the two different file management tools, where they come in, and then talk a little bit about that dynamic transition option.
Yeah, so when you transition something and you have the notification, you can actually notify, and I can actually, you know, go to a notification and show you a little bit of the back end. But basically, when you create a notification, you decide what are the groups or the user receiving them, and you can also select if they're going to be dynamic or not. Dynamic meaning that you can select them and manually, and then if they're not checked as a dynamic selection, it just means that this recipient, like the group or the user, will get it automatically. So you can totally automate the notification system inside of PDM. That's easy to do. And the notification system are both for professional and standard. So if, you know, there's two levels of PDM, but the notifications for both of them, the difference is that PDM professional will have the choice between email notification or database. What you've seen here when it popped up, that's a database notification. So basically, you know, it notifies you when you're logged in inside of PDM. With the email notification PDM Pro, it would have the ability to leverage your email server and send you an email about those changes or PDM email. So you wouldn't have necessarily to be logged in PDM to get it.
All right, I think I get that, David. So basically the option is in both standard and professional, but Pro can send true emails, whereas the standard uses the database notification system.
That's correct.
Okay, one more question came in while we were talking there. It's good. Derek says, is there a way to require certain information be entered before the file can be, he says saved, but we'd probably interpret that as checked in, right?
Yeah.
But he basically wants to require somebody to enter, like a customer, a job number, to ensure that, you know, that information's there and it can be searched on later.
Yeah, absolutely. Those fields have a lot of possibility if you want. So as you can see right now, you know, those are restricted because it's released. But even if I was able to edit my file, there's some fields that I can block. I can make them read only, or I can make them mandatory. So that would basically cover what you're saying. You know, a field would have to be filled up before you check it in. You can also make some mechanism in the workflows that would check if, you know, a certain piece of metadata would be there in order to approve a file. If it's not there, it won't let, you know, pass the transition and go to a release state until you fill up that information. So there's different ways to do it, but you can absolutely do that.
Awesome. Thank you, David.
Absolutely. Any other question, guys?
Not yet, but hopefully that has enticed some folks to enter away.
All right. So, I mean, on the topic of automation and I guess naming and those PDF, what happened here is when I approved that drawing, it created a new rev, but it also created automatically a PDF for me. It did put it on the top level PDF, easier for me to manage and give, let's say, manufacturing access to it. I did put a rev A in my name here, just because maybe that's a document that will get out of PDM for some reason. This tool can actually export your PDF outside of PDM if you want to. So that would be a reason for putting a revision next to it. But the idea here is I didn't have to get in my document, do anything, change the revision, my title block. This will all be taken care of in my PDF. And I have a little preview here of my PDF. I have my Rev A on it on that belt cover. So I'll get back to preview, but the PDF is very appreciated amongst our customer. This is a piece of automation that a lot of people take advantage of. If I go in my administration tool here, you'll see that not only I can take advantage of creating PDFs, but a lot of people now take advantage of creating different piece of, well, different format. So you can do a DXF, a DWG, STL for your 3D printer. You know, there's a lot of possibility to automate the conversion of a drawing or a part into other format. And, you know, like I said, little things add up, and then this is a nice time saver. The other thing that, you know, happened during, you know, the release of my file was a lot of little actions. I kind of talked about them. You know, I triggered that task here to create the PDM. I can also set the variables on my data card about who approved it on which date. I can increment my revision automatically. So those are all little things, again, that adds up, that can be automated with PDM. Let me finish up with the automation with two other little things or features in PDM that I really like. The first one is the ability to create a document from a template. I'll log off as Mr. Viewer here, close the notification, get back as Mr. Engineer, as I'm controlling this this feature again to make sure that, you know, maybe not my viewer, but only my engineer can trigger that feature. So, you know, maybe Mr. Engineer saw there was a problem with a file and wants to trigger an engineering change notice or engineering change order, or whatever you call it. The idea here is I can save my file or my template in the vault, whether it's a Word document, an Excel sheet, whatever, and then use that as my template to trigger all my engineering change. So again, the vault is not only for engineering data, it's for all type of data. So if I want to trigger or start an engineering change, I can just through a right click, get my new engineering change triggered, and then have a bunch of information already, you know, just from this interface, start entering information inside my template. So maybe a description, maybe choosing a manager for that change, so put test, maybe browsing for a file that will be associated with that engineering change. So I'll go on I have files here. There you go. I'll just, this file in here, and then create that document. I can have it open automatically. I can have it checked in automatically. And what I'm doing here is I make sure that all my documents always go to the same place. Mr. Engineer today at 12:46. Wow, time flies by. I created this one here. You can see through the preview. This is my template document. If I open this document, you'll also see that the information that I enter in the PDM interface will be in my document, as far as date, the engineering change number, which was created automatically, my description, the attached stuff to it. So there's a lot of things. This is a whole topic. We have blogs and videos on this if you're interested in this, but I just wanted you to know that you can automate the creation of those other documents pretty easily in the Vault. And then for the last one, last little feature in the automation here is the copy tree. So if you're using existing design to create new design, the copy tree is just great. You might be familiar with Pack and Go. It's sort of a Pack and Go, but for PDM. It allows you to basically take an existing design, and then it will copy all of these. So I just selected my top level, it grabs all my parts. I can rename all of these with a new part number. So you can say I can have different types of, naming scheme. I'm using those part numbers, HRF with a number. So you can see that my file name have all changed from their existing. I'll choose a different folder to put it in. And these are literally brand new files. They're, exactly the same like the other ones, but they are, I'll go in the new project we created that was empty, and then select this folder. I can even, create common parts on the fly, which is a great feature. So if I'm thinking this plate will be common to the two, I'm not going to copy it, and it's going to be in my new assembly and in my existing assembly. Those are all just little automation that prevents from, having to go in, save as, and break your reference, because by the way, you have a database now in the background, your reference are not going to get broken. And then just so you can see, I go to my project, my new project, mechanical files, and here are my new files. You can see that I have only 3 new files. I can see my contains that my other new files. Oh, I need to check them in. That my new files are here, and then that's my common file between the two assembly. There's reference in my new assembly without revision or anything. So great little feature, get you your new design or started quickly. Tim, do we have any other questions?
Do not. Nothing yet.
All right. Let's move on. All right. The last little piece that I have here is share your file. So one of the things I keep hearing from customers is how many copies of the same files floating around. Right? So we distribute our data left and right. We print a copy, give it the shop, or we email this copy. We share it to sharing platform to everyone, and then that data just spreads, right? It leads to confusion, leads to error, leads to avoidable costs. So with PDM, what's interesting is you can centralize your data. So again, what I was saying is you can put all that data in PDM. You can put anything in PDM. And then accessing the data to a tech client like I'm doing, or to a web service, greatly helps to give people access to that data instead of multiplicating it around. So again, let's take a quick look at that. As far as putting everything in PDM, you've seen that I had this little preview tab here where I can go look at different type of data. So that preview will preview up to 250 types of file, but obviously it will preview things like a composer file. So if you're using other tools, electrical, composer, PCB, name it, those are all files that should be in the vault, because once you have everything in the vault, everybody's got access to that data. You can reference it to assembly manual, you can reference it to your product. It's all interconnected, which is great. The other thing is being able to share that data or getting different access point is great, because you don't have to send it around. So I'm gonna just log in this vault here and show you that I can access a PDM vault to Chrome or any browser. So if you want to have your shop working on a tablet, accessing the assembly manual, accessing the latest drawing or something like that, you can absolutely do that. Great search feature here. Famous last word, right? Great search feature that will be global search. It can search by description, by name, and whatnot. As I browse, I'll have as well, let's say, I'm going to look at this one here. I can have a preview in my inside that viewer. Use eDrawing. So again, if you need a cut view, if you need zoom in, zoom out, a quick measurement, this is all available inside of the web server. And then I'll do all my other things that I've been showing you, the change state to participate in the workflow. A lot of people use that web service for that. Download the file, upload the file, and then all that information about my data card, my bill of material. You can see there's associated files with it. My contains were used, complete history of the file. So pretty little good tool for accessing your file from anywhere, from any device. Yeah. So I think I'm running a little bit out of time or not. I'm just running at the end of this presentation. So I just want to thank you all for coming to the webinar. Um, there's going to be a little survey at the end of this webinar to see if there's anything that I didn't cover as far as an introduction to PDM where you'd like to have more information. There's a good section of blog and video on our website that you can go to, tutorials or just introduction to different parts of that. But again, thank you for being part of this webinar.